In 1938, Britain and France were intent on avoiding war and went out of their way to do so by acquiescing to Hitler's territorial claim of the largely German-speaking but heavily fortified Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. As a result, Chamberlain, the then British Prime Minister, famously claimed that he had achieved peace in their time by taking Hitler at his word. Soon after, however, the Germans invaded the rest of the weakened Czechoslovakia, and not long after, Hitler turned his attention to Poland and the rest of Europe, setting it ablaze and resulting in the death of millions. The tragic lesson being that appeasing dictators doesn't work and why history matters. Today, Vladimir Putin, a former Soviet KGB officer, has essentially been in control of Russia since 1999 and looks unassailable for now. And he has demonstrated he is willing to do whatever it takes to remain in control, having opposition leaders such as Alexei Navalny poisoned and others murdered. He would, however, face personal danger, as with all dictators, should an opposition party be able to gain power. Which is why Putin has amassed 100,000 or more troops on the Ukrainian border. Having them as a Western-style democracy on his doorstep is a direct threat to Putin's own power, and therefore he must ensure that the Ukraine doesn't become a stable democracy, and why he is demanding guarantees that they won't be allowed to join NATO. For if this come to pass, it would remove Putin's ability to undermine Kiev and would eventually erode his own authority. Hence why he is using the ethnic Russians who live in the eastern Ukraine as a pretense for invasion, as he has already done in the Crimea and as did Hitler in the Sudetenland. For even if it was a limited war to reclaim the ethnic Russian East, it would be enough to destabilize the Ukraine and bring it back under the influence of Moscow and divide Europe once again. President Biden has allowed the go-ahead of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that bypasses the Ukraine and has removed their bargaining chip. This following shortly after the unceremonious withdrawal out of Afghanistan, showing the world the US didn't have the political stomach to see out what they had started, while undermining their allies and leaving them wondering if America can still be trusted. Not to mention the weakened state of the US military, which has not only been reeling from the effects of the COVID situation, but is also purging itself of so-called right-wing extremists who don't buy into the new woke ideology. And just as France and Britain looked to avoid war at all costs in 1938, so too does NATO, and especially the United States now. The incompetent president of the US lacks the know-with-all to be able to deal with any complex situation, let alone a war. Despite warning the Russians of severe consequences for any aggression, he has already revealed his hand by informing Putin that America won't get involved in a conflict. And now Putin has told Biden any sanctions would be an act of war, and so the American president has completely boxed himself in. What will be next if Putin gets his way in the Ukraine? Where will it end? Will the Baltic states be next? That would bring NATO into direct conflict with Russia, but would Germany and other Western European countries want to get involved now that they are completely energy dependent on Russia? Will China also use the opportunity to invade Taiwan? For all his faults, Donald Trump did get many things right, and not bowing down to dictators while still avoiding further wars was possibly his greatest lesson for the free world. His policy of arming the Ukrainians so that any invasion would be too costly is still the best solution. Peace through strength. But now Biden's weakness only makes war in the Ukraine more likely. Putin knows he will never get a better chance to do this while America and its allies are so weak and divided. After all, would Hitler have been able to expand, especially against a considerably armed and fortified Czechoslovakia, if the Western allies hadn't thrown him under the bus?